In mid-2025, in the depths of the South Atlantic, an underwater robot captured something that no human eye had ever seen before in that region of the ocean. It was not a known creature behaving in an unusual way. It was not a phenomenon that scientists could immediately explain by consulting existing scientific literature. It was something completely new, luminous structures and creatures emitting light in ways that researchers aboard the vessel had not anticipated finding. In an ecosystem that no one knew existed, with that richness and diversity at more than 1,000 meters depth off the coasts of Mar del Plata, Argentina. The high-definition images that the robot sent to the surface that night changed what we know about the South Atlantic. And what they reveal about life in the ocean depths is so extraordinary that scientists are still processing their implications. Leave your like, subscribe, and share. Let us begin. The Mar del Plata submarine canyon is one of those geological structures that exist at the bottom of the ocean with a monumentality that has no visible equivalent at the surface. A submarine canyon is essentially the same as a terrestrial canyon, a deep gorge with steep walls carved into the seabed, only instead of having been formed by the erosion of a river over thousands of years, it was sculpted by deep ocean currents, sediment slides, and the tectonic processes that continuously shape the Earth's crust beneath the ocean. The Mar del Plata Canyon extends from the Argentine continental shelf toward the depths of the South Atlantic, descending steeply from relatively shallow waters to depths exceeding 4,500 meters in its most abyssal zones. It is a structure of colossal dimensions that until the 2025 expedition had remained practically unexplored. An unknown territory, a few hours of navigation from one of the most populated cities of Argentina. The expedition that changed that landscape bore the name Underwater Oases of Mar del Plata Canyon and was the result of a scientific collaboration between Argentina and the United States that brought together the experience and resources of two first-rate institutions. On the Argentine side, CONICET, the National Council of Scientific and Technical Research, which is the main scientific research body of Argentina and has a long track record in oceanography and marine sciences. On the American side, the Schmidt Institute of Ocean Sciences, a private nonprofit organization founded by Eric Schmidt, the former executive director of Google, which has specialized in funding and equipping cutting-edge ocean exploration expeditions with the most advanced technology available. The combination of Argentine scientific experience in the South Atlantic and the technological and logistical capacity of the Schmidt Institute produced an expedition that surpassed all the expectations of its organizers. The platform from which the exploration was conducted was the research vessel Falkor 2, a scientific research vessel equipped with state-of-the-art underwater exploration systems. The Falkor 2 is not simply a ship with some underwater cameras. It is a floating scientific platform specifically designed to support deep exploration operations with the capacity to launch, operate, and recover remotely operated underwater vehicles known as ROVs in complex ocean conditions and at depths of thousands of meters. The ROVs operated by the Falkor 2 are equipped with high-definition cameras capable of capturing images with extraordinary clarity and detail, even in the absolute darkness of ocean depths. With manipulator arms that allow for sample collection without damaging organisms, and with a variety of scientific sensors that simultaneously record temperature, salinity, pressure, oxygen concentration, and other oceanographic variables of the traversed environment. When the ROV began its descent from the surface to the depths of the Mar del Plata Canyon, it first traversed the euphotic zone, approximately the first 200 meters where sufficient sunlight arrives to allow photosynthesis. Then it entered the mesopelagic zone where sunlight attenuates until it almost disappears, and where it begins to encounter the first bioluminescent organisms, creatures that produce their own light through chemical reactions in their tissues. Upon exceeding 1,000 meters depth, the ROV entered the bathypelagic zone, where absolute darkness reigns, pressure is equivalent to 100 atmospheres or more, and water temperature is just a few degrees above freezing. And it was in this zone, in this environment that seems designed to make life as we know it impossible, that the robot found the oasis. The word oasis is the one the expedition scientists themselves used to describe what the ROV found in the depths of the canyon, and it is a perfectly chosen metaphor. In the desert, an oasis is a point of life concentration amid an arid and hostile environment, a place where underground water surfaces and allows the existence of vegetation and fauna that otherwise could not survive. In the deep ocean floor, the equivalent of desert underground water is the nutrients that ocean currents transport from different ocean zones and concentrate at specific points of submarine topography. The Mar del Plata Canyon is located in an area where two ocean currents of very different characteristics converge. The Malvinas Current, which brings cold, nutrient-rich waters from the south, and the Brazil Current, which transports warm, more nutrient-poor waters from the north. The interaction between these two currents, amplified by the specific topography of the canyon, creates unique oceanographic conditions that favor the concentration of nutrients and, therefore, the proliferation of life in concentrations that scientists did not expect to find at those depths in that region of the South Atlantic. Leave your like, subscribe, and share. The luminous phenomena that the ROV captured in high definition are the most immediately impactful and visually extraordinary aspect of the expedition's findings. Bioluminescence, the ability of living organisms to produce and emit light through chemical reactions, is a relatively common phenomenon in the deep ocean, where it is estimated that more than 70% of known species are capable of producing it to some degree. But what the robot recorded in the Mar del Plata Canyon was not conventional bioluminescence. The images show luminous structures of a complexity and beauty that researchers had not previously seen documented in any scientific publication about the South Atlantic. Organisms that produce elaborate light patterns, that pulse and change in intensity in ways that suggest communicative or prey-attracting functions more sophisticated than what was known for species in that region. Bioluminescence in the deep ocean serves multiple functions depending on the species and context. Some organisms use it to attract prey toward their mouths in total darkness, like the famous deep-sea anglerfish with its luminous appendage hanging before its teeth. Others use it to communicate with members of their own species, sending signals that only other individuals of the same species can correctly interpret. Some employ it as a defense mechanism, producing flashes that dazzle or confuse predators and allow them to escape. And others, in ways that science still does not completely understand, seem to use it in forms that do not fit any of these established categories for purposes that researchers are only beginning to speculate about. The luminous structures captured by the Falcor 2's ROV in the Mar del Plata Canyon seem to belong to this last category, that of phenomena that defy existing explanations and require additional research before they can be understood. But luminous phenomena were not the only extraordinary finding of the expedition. The biodiversity oasis that the ROV documented in the depths of the canyon includes a variety of creatures that the scientists from CONOCET and the Schmidt Institute are meticulously processing, comparing with known species databases and evaluating the possibility that some of them are species new to science, not previously cataloged anywhere in the world or at least not previously recorded in the South Atlantic. Among the observed creatures are deep-water sponges that form elaborate structures resembling gardens at the bottom of the canyon, cold-water corals that grow slowly over centuries and provide habitat for dozens of other species, echinoderms such as starfish and sea urchins adapted to the extreme conditions of pressure and temperature in the depths, and fish from the mesopelagic and bathopelagic zones whose distribution and behavior in this region of the ocean had not been documented before this expedition. The influence of the Malvinas and Brazil currents in creating this biodiversity oasis is an aspect that the oceanographers of the team have analyzed with particular attention. The Malvinas Current is a subantarctic water current that travels northward along the Atlantic coast of Argentina, transporting cold, nutrient-rich and dissolved oxygen-rich waters that come from the subpolar zones of the South Atlantic. The Brazil Current, moving in the opposite direction southward, transports tropical warm waters with completely different chemical characteristics. When these two water masses meet off the coasts of the province of Buenos Aires, in the area known as the Brazil-Malvinas confluence, the result is one of the most productive oceanographic regions of the South Atlantic, an area where the mixing of waters of different temperatures and chemical compositions creates exceptional conditions for plankton proliferation and therefore for the entire food chain that depends on it. The Mar del Plata Canyon, with its topography that channels and concentrates bottom currents, seems to act as an amplifier of this effect, creating in its depths an exceptionally rich environment for life. The maximum depth explored during the expedition, 4,500 meters, places some of the studied zones in the category of abyssal waters, a territory where conditions are so extreme that for decades it was believed that life was practically impossible or extremely scarce. The reality that the Falkor 2's ROV documented at those depths of the Mar del Plata Canyon contradicts that view and adds to a series of recent discoveries in various parts of the world that are forcing oceanographers to fundamentally revise their models about the distribution of life in the deep ocean. Far from being a biological desert, the great ocean depths appear to harbor complex and diverse ecosystems that we have simply been slow to discover because the technology needed to explore them in sufficient detail has only been available in recent years. The scientific impact of this expedition will extend for years after the Falkor 2 returned to port. The biological samples collected by the ROV's manipulator arms are being analyzed in laboratories in Argentina and the United States, and the results of those analyses, possibly including the description of new species for science, will be appearing in specialized scientific publications over the next few years. The oceanographic data collected by the ROV's sensors during its dives are being integrated into computational models describing the oceanic circulation of the South Atlantic, improving the precision of those models and contributing to a better understanding of how the ocean absorbs heat and carbon from the atmosphere, a matter of enormous relevance for the study of climate change and the luminous phenomena that began this account. Those light structures never before recorded in the South Atlantic will continue to be studied and debated by specialists in marine bioluminescence until someone manages to precisely explain what organisms produce them, how they produce them, and what they produce them for. Because that is exactly the nature of science. Each answer generates new questions, and each discovery opens a door toward a vaster and more complex territory than the one we believed we knew. The Mar del Plata submarine canyon existed before the Falkor 2 explored it, and the biodiversity oases in its depths and the luminous phenomena that inhabit them existed before any human eye saw them. What changed in 2025 was not the ocean. What changed was our capacity to see what had always been there, waiting in the darkness for someone to arrive with sufficient light to illuminate it. Leave your like, subscribe, and share. Until next time.